The Rufus Project would like to advise the following podcast contains spoilers for Suicide Squad from 2016. If you do not wish to have this movie spoiled, please watch it before listening to the following podcast. Is it a wild team-up of DC's greatest villains, or should it have been left in prison? We watched Suicide Squad from 2016 to see if we could redeem it. Were we successful? Find out after the theme.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features. Boy? Oh boy.
Hello and welcome to the Rufus Project. This time checking out Suicide Squad from 2016. I am the suggester of this movie and one of your hosts, Trevor Holland, and I am joined by my good friend, co-host, and possible victim of this movie,
Kristian Fletcher. And here was me just going to say watcher, but I don't know, depending on the outcome, I don't want to give too much away. You never know how these movies are going to go. I very much still am in two minds as we're talking, so you'll never know. Well, actually, you will know at the end.
I mean, it was quite a divisive movie when it came out, so it is kind of the movie you can be in two minds about quite easily. So, but we should get more into that. So, like we said, we're checking out Suicide Squad from 2016. If you haven't seen this movie, I do have a brief synopsis here for you. A secret government agency recruits some of the most dangerous incarcerated supervillains to form a defensive task force. Their first mission? Save the world from the apocalypse.
No pressure or anything, but for their first teaming or first movie, pretty impressive undertaking. But I did actually see this movie a couple of years ago, but not being, I suppose, familiar with the superhero world, I must admit I was obviously interested enough to hunt it down. So I had a lot of faith in this, and I know it had a lot of promo in the lead up to it, Trevor. So even someone who's not into this, you couldn't not hear about this movie.
Yeah, I mean, this movie was everywhere when it was being promoted, and the excitement of seeing Joker and Harley up on the big screen, ooh, and that sort of stuff. Even though we shall get into that, I'm sure.
Yeah, definitely.
As we go. but yeah, I mean, there's no doubt that this was plugged big time, and a lot of the trailers did that thing where they go, here's some really, really good music, cut in well with the action. And I just go, ooh, I'm a sucker. I'm such a sucker for that.
No, and with a sound
every time.
With a soundtrack like that, I know we'll get to it, but I can see. I actually didn't catch the trailer, but I have a feeling it would be very similar to the first half of the early parts of the movie in terms of editing, so we'll talk about that too.
Absolutely. But before we get to that, we need to talk about the awards. And let me just say, there's a lot, so I may have to condense this a bit. I will start with the big thing that surprised a lot of people, in the fact that this movie won an Oscar for the best achievement in makeup and hairstyling.
Yeah, I can see that. Yeah, I know. I remember even when they were making it, there was talk, will Margot Robbie get a Oscar nomination for this? And I don't really think, aside from visual and makeup sort of stuff, I don't really think actors in superhero movies tend to be awarded.
No. I mean, well, not for the Oscars anyway. It did get some nominations for the Academy of Science Fiction, Fantasy and Horror Films for their Saturn Award. It was nominated for Best Comic to Film Motion Picture, Best Supporting Actress for Margot Robbie, and Best Makeup. So that seems to have done fairly well. Now, on the other side of things, the Alliance of Women Film Journalists, this got a nomination for the EDA Special Mention Award for Hall of Shame for David Ayer and Margot Robbie, and Actress Most in Need of a New Agent, again for Margot Robbie.
I was going to say, when you said the name of that organisation, I didn't think they'd be quite for her, let's just say her portrayal. I think one of the characters, what did they say? A drunk stripper. Yeah. There's certain elements to it, but again, getting into the character, and she is an actress, so she was playing that character. And I think, is it Stan Lee? I don't know who created. Look, I'm not familiar with all this sort of stuff, but the creator of Harley Quinn essentially said that her portrayal was pretty much spot on for what he envisaged her to be. So I was pretty much going off that.
Yeah, when you talk about Margot Robbie in this movie and how divisive it all is, just going back to the more positive side of the awards, the Broadcast Film Critics Association Awards, she won the Best Actress in an Action Movie.
Oh, that's
so
pretty good.
yeah, like even her portrayal as Harley Quinn is divisive when it comes to this sort of stuff. But we got to get to the good stuff now, the real major awards. So we'll go for the Golden Schmoes Awards first.
Of course.
Where this movie was nominated for Worst Movie of the Year, Biggest Disappointment of the Year, Coolest Character of the Year, and Favourite Movie Poster of the Year. It won the Most Overrated Movie of the Year. It also got the Best Supporting Actress of the Year for Margot Robbie, Best TNA of the Year, Margot Robbie, and Best Trailer of the Year. So, a bit of a mixed bag in the Golden Schmoes there.
But not to give too much away, but I'm getting a bit of a trend here, Trevor, that it's very much Margot Robbie and the editing of the trailer, and I suppose the makeup that seems to be the most, I suppose, positive aspects of this movie, especially in terms of critics. So, I think those awards seem very telling in that.
Yeah, well, It didn't win any Razzies, but it was nominated for Worst Supporting Actor for Jared Leto and Worst Screenplay for David Ayer. And we'll finish off this huge list with the Village Voice Film Poll, where it won the Worst Film of the Year.
Oh, wow. I'm trying to even remember what was out in 2016, but when you've got a movie that's hyped up that much, yeah, people are expecting a lot. And I'll be honest, we did hear the hype. People went and saw it. I never really heard much afterwards, and usually that's a sign that things aren't potentially been received that well. So it kind of came and went. So, and you said there's a new one coming out, and this one is apparently supposed to be ignored.
Yeah, that's what we heard. I mean, there was no news of a sequel for this, and we'll get to why that's surprising in very, very shortly when we get to our Turkey trivia. But yeah, the news is that after James Gunn got drummed out of Disney and got taken off the Guardian of the Galaxy franchise, that he's been put in charge of the new Suicide Squad movie, and it may well be basically a reboot of a series that only had one movie. So, that's an interesting turn of events.
Yeah, especially, essentially if you want to look at it as a remake or a reboot, yes, 2 years in is, we might have to get used to it for the future, I think, of cinema. If we don't like it 2 years later, let's just redo the whole thing. But you were mentioning divisive portrayals, but probably the big thing I heard, like all of the stuff I heard about Margot Robbie was praised, but it was the big divisive one was Jared Leto playing the Joker. And yeah, I'm still a bit mixed about my thoughts on his performance, but that seemed to be the one that tore the internet apart, I think.
Yeah, I think we shall definitely have a few things to say about our pal Jared. Jazza, as Captain Boomerang might call him. Anyway,
anyway, we'll get to these.
We will get to these. But first we need to get to our Turkey trivia. So this is where we talk Turkey about the movie and then talk a bit of trivia. Yes. So this one is rated 6.1 out of 10 on IMDb. It had a budget of 175 million, but its box office was over 746 million worldwide, which is, again, surprising why a sequel wasn't forthcoming pretty quickly, given that it did do quite well.
Well, I think there'd been talks, about doing the standalone Harley Quinn movie, which I think they're still doing, and I suppose a Joker movie. I think they're doing one with the two of them, actually. So, maybe there was always thoughts of going on to this sort of area, but you definitely felt like it was going to be a franchise.
Yeah, I think at the moment they're talking about the Birds of Prey movie.
That's the one I'm thinking of. I think it's just going to be her and a couple of other female characters, and then there's going to be a Joker and Harley Quinn standalone movie, I think. Well,
apparently there's at least 2 Joker movies in the works at the moment, taking different aspects. So it's okay. They seem to be doubling down on that. But we shall see. Let's just say DC's choices have been interesting, given that I think we pretty much yeah, we didn't we didn't have a good result for Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice,
Ooh, yes.
being the only other DC movie that we've done so far. So
Thankfully.
yeah. Anyway, on to the trivia.
Yes.
Now, there's a big helicopter crash scene in this movie that was the last scene to be shot, just in case any of the cast members got injured. Let them get hurt right at the end.
Yeah, I know the bit you mean too. So, kind of impressive, and thank you for saving your cast.
Absolutely. This might hurt you, but we're going to do it at the end, so we don't need to worry.
We don't have to deal with it afterwards. Don't have to have a stand-in.
Mm-hmm. Now, speaking of Jared Leto, apparently he got so immersed in playing the Joker that he wouldn't break out of character on set, even when he wasn't filming, and he sent his fellow cast members Joker-like presents. Margot Robbie got a live rat, Will Smith got bullets, Adewale Akinwumi Abaji, I hope I pronounced that correctly, received a soiled Playboy magazine.
Oh, gross.
And the whole crew got things like a dead hog, anal bead, and used condoms.
Oh my gosh! So that's taking method acting to the extreme.
Yeah, I have heard those stories. And Scott Eastwood commented that Leto frightened him at times with his behaviour, and Will Smith basically feels that he never met the real Jared Leto.
Wow. So, but and then resulting in a performance that's got quite mixed results. So,
indeed. Now, during Deadshot's dossier sequence at the start of the film, which I'm sure we shall mention, the list of weapons which he is deadly accurate includes a potato cannon.
See, I'm wishing I'd paused a lot of those screens because some of those things were pretty funny. I didn't notice that one.
Yeah. And again, we'll go with regards to the tone of the movie with some of that sort of stuff as we go, I'm sure. Now, as everyone basically seems to mainly focus on, our good friend and fellow Aussie Margot Robbie did the majority of her own stunts.
I got the feeling, especially when I'm seeing her doing those sort of acrobatic things at the start, I'm like, yeah, that wouldn't be someone doubling for her. So, and looking at the dedication she put in with I, Tonya and the ice skating, I could really see her, putting her all in for this one as well.
Well, yeah, and also with further on with that, with Margot Robbie and her portrayal as Harley Quinn, the baseball bat, she ended up giving that to writer and director Kevin Smith, who hosted a panel for the DC movies. And then Kevin Smith gave it to his daughter, who he named Harley Quinn Smith.
Aha, yeah, I'd heard that she's called that, so I didn't know. Yes. I thought it was Harley Smith. I didn't realise they'd actually gone with the Quinn, so that's a pretty cute story.
Indeed it is. So she's now... So Harley Quinn Smith now owns Harley Quinn's back.
Makes sense.
All good.
No, she could be the successor to Margot Robbie in later years, possibly.
Quite possibly. Now, I'll just finish off, because there is another Australian actor in this, not that you would notice from what people mainly say, but Jai Courtney, who plays Captain Boomerang, was reported as saying, "I will never be in a comic book movie." But he changed his mind after finding out David Ayer was the person directing and producing this film.
Because I believe he'd been in, he sort of was discovered a few years ago doing Mission Impossible or something, but I don't know if he was from Neighbours or one of those sort of shows, because I often thought when I saw him on screen with Margot Robbie, I'm sure they would have worked together in Australia before.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure he is one of the soap opera alumni.
They tend to be.
I may be quickly clicking on things here.
I should have looked this up. Sorry to put you on the spot.
I mean, he was in All Saints, if
okay.
you're looking at Australian TV series.
Well, essentially, an Australian drama.
Basically,
role.
yes.
Yeah, I see what you mean. So, don't think he would have performed with her, but it's good to see some Aussies up there on screen representing us for us.
Indeed, even though, God, his accent, oh my goodness,
I know.
We should get into
and we'll get into all the little, obviously, what Americans think of Australia and all the very stereotypical things that were thrown in for his character, which I kind of go, oh gosh.
Yeah, but at least he had fun.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but before we get on that, yet again, want to chat about stuff that happened. We can't help ourselves, can we, Kristian?
I know, and there's a lot of trivia, as you said, so...
Indeed. I cut so much out. So much of it was about Jared Leto as well. It's no, I want other stuff. But look, For those who are first listening and wondering why we're talking about this movie Suicide Squad, the purpose of the Rufus Project is to watch movies that may have bombed or have less than stellar reputations, or in this case are quite divisive, and see if we can find the movie redeemable. So with that in mind, we do need to set ourselves a baseline. So I went to Amazon and I grabbed this review to see what we're working from. The title of this one is Better Off Cleaning Dishes Than Wasting Your Time on This Catastrophe. I tried my best to overlook the predictable jokes, racist stereotypes, overacting and horrible directorial management, but could not even make it through half of the film before I realised I just wasted an hour of my life getting dumber. I really wanted to finish it, but I couldn't swing it. Too painful. 1 star.
Wow. I'm surprised that she managed to see the 1 hour cut because we had the 2 hour 14. So yeah, lucky her. I don't know, but yeah. So and as we say, it can only either go up or sideways from here.
Indeed. I did have to throw in this little bonus review that came through, also 1 star, which simply said DC movie fail.
That sounds like it was probably even a hashtag around the time of its release.
But look, as you mentioned, we did end up watching the director's cut of over 2 hours. I think about 2.25 hours. But Kristian, sorry, but you knew we were going to get back to this sort of length movie at some point.
Oh, look, it didn't worry me because I was actually not until the very end where it actually came up with this is the extra director's cut, or I was unaware that I was watching the longer version. I just thought those sort of movies were that length nowadays. So it's all right, Trevor. I managed to survive. So. But I can't say that I managed to sit still in one place, but I managed to get through it.
Yes. But it almost starts with like technical issues, like when the logos keep coming out, the lights on the logos kept shorting out, which I thought was an interesting choice.
Yeah, well, I actually really love talking about the logos. I love the use of even the colours that they use, like stuff that we're seeing a lot in the Suicide Squad posters, I'm assuming, that, or the logo, that sort of pink and the reds, that's very fluoro colours, and I love that they just do that straight away with the logos, and pretty much don't waste any time getting in, which, I couldn't even imagine a movie like this having an opening scroll, so I'm glad they didn't.
Yeah, thankfully no scroll, no voiceover, but oh god damn, this movie knows how to get me right from the outset as it fades in and House of the Rising Sun kicks in.
I know. And
I'm just there going, oh my god, what are you doing? And then, it cuts from that. I think You Don't Own Me cuts in. It's just like changing from scene to scene of various characters with just this really good music kicking in. And I'm going, oh, wow. Yeah.
Well, that's the first thing. As soon as the animals came on, I'm like, I'm going to love this soundtrack. I could just see it now. And yeah, it was so clever, I think, especially mentioning those 2 songs and the good use of it. Like, especially, using that for Will Smith's character. And then, The House of the Rising Sun. And then, You Don't Own Me comes straight in with Margot Robbie. And it just suits it so well. Like, and yeah, I know what you mean. I was sucked in pretty much straight away. And a feeling which I found it didn't manage to keep the momentum up or the clever use of the soundtrack as much as it does in these first 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, because like I said, it doesn't waste much time. We get mainly focus on Will Smith and Margot Robbie in those opening bits before we meet, I suppose, one of the bad guys, or just the hard ass Amanda Waller, played by...
Is it Viola Davis? Is that it?
Viola Davis.
Yes, I've got Viola written on everything because I'm like, I didn't write Amanda down. So good to know. What was it, Amanda?
Amanda Waller.
Okay, that was it.
Yeah. With her dossier, and as it cuts through, I'm thinking, if she's describing the actions going on, she is giving great detail to these people as we cut through to the various characters doing their thing, and they're getting like all this text on screen of what they do and what they're capable of, all written in a way that complements the character itself. But I did have a bit of a laugh when they get to Jai Courtney as Captain Boomerang. And as he goes in there, you got Akka Daka, AC/DC, playing in the background for him. But it was nice to actually see one of them not being caught by Batman.
Yeah, well, because I noticed they did because I like how they did the flashbacks. Like, they were really well edited, and they weren't, it wasn't like, oh, we're going into flashback territory, because you're just dying to know about these characters that we've just met. But yeah, I noticed that they did the flashback for Will Smith's, and then Harley Quinn's, and then they sort of did the scene with Amanda Waller, and then sort of like, it wasn't, they just didn't do a whole series of flashbacks, which I think was really quite clever. And yeah, as you said, not all of them were caught by Batman. But one thing that really struck me in that, I suppose, dinner table scene with Amanda Waller which is funny because it's set in Washington. So is it assumed that Washington is right next to Gotham? Is that the whole idea?
Yeah, I know they play pretty loose with.
It could be anywhere
with geography in this. I mean, Batman v Superman. You had the city of Gotham and the city of Metropolis across the bay from each other.
Yeah, that's right. Whatever's convenient for the filmmakers, I suppose. But
basically,
but one thing that worked, like, as much as I love her as an actress, and I can understand, like, I always say, I always wish that we could understand these people existing in this world, but it's unfortunate she's almost taken it a step too far by almost being way too serious about, yes, and then we had the incident of Superman flying, and it's hard to really keep a straight face. And then, as you mentioned, she must go into very big detail with the flashbacks, but still manages to eat the steak pretty much during the whole time.
Yeah, and right. You other thing, like, she's so serious and so earnest, but yeah, these flashbacks are just full of action and
tongue in cheek.
A lot of them are quite fun.
Yeah, it's like they were supposed to be showing her because as we see later on, not that she's a villain, or well, essentially she kind of is, which is funny because it almost makes us sort of flip our thoughts on the Suicide Squad. We'll get to that, but they often refer to her as a mean lady and things like that. But yeah, I just thought that she was playing it very seriously, so maybe they really wanted something to counteract all the sort of tongue-in-cheek humour that was happening elsewhere. But that's what I mean. The tone of the movie was quite skewed for me, even from this stage, because of that.
Yeah, true. But one thing you can tell during that, I don't think which was a bit skewed, is you can certainly tell who the main characters were in amongst the squad of bad guys, because those intros and those dossiers of the various characters, they just got shorter and shorter as it went on until they got to Enchantress, who basically just has to go and grab a thing, and she gets a bit of an extra long one because she's obviously a more important character than Boomerang or Diablo or Killer Croc,
and that's the thing, being not familiar with the comics or anything like that, I found the concepts of a lot of these characters is quite unusual, especially the crocodile one. And for the first, I think it wasn't until the second half of the movie that I could actually understand what he was saying. But yeah, I can understand, again, it's comic book brought to life. But yeah, you could definitely tell, especially with the backstories, that I know you mentioned the dossiers, but I was even saying just the style of the flashbacks, that you knew that this was a lot to do with Harley Quinn and the Joker's relationship, and I suppose Harley's story, rather than the Killer Croc, probably because it's such a weird character. I don't know if he'll ever get his own movie, but I just think that's too weird. But anyway.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was hard to understand, but at least he didn't say too much.
Yeah, exactly. And what can a crocodile really say? So
True. But actually, mentioning one of the other characters, Diablo, when they finally get to the prison to recruit them, and he's there. He's like locked. Isn't there in like a metal tube or something for just no apparent reason other than, he's locked himself away, and he's going on and on and on about how he doesn't want to use his powers, and then makes him go away by using his powers to make the word "buy" out of fire in there. I think you just said you didn't want to use your powers. What are you doing?
Yeah, it's funny how when they do eventually get him to use his powers, I think it was just because they're all going, "Come on, you don't know, you can't really do that," Because I think he kept denying even all the stuff from the footage when he takes out the whole prison yard, which is pretty impressive. But yeah, he needs to own it earlier. But I think these guys had been, and girls had been affected so much by being in there that they really were a bit scared. But it didn't seem to take long or much convincing. It must have been Amanda Waller's sweet talking to get the head honchos to allow them to do this, because they spend these first 10 or 15 minutes setting up how dangerous these people are, and then before we know it, they're being released. and walking around free, when, I know I'm jumping ahead a bit, but that scene later on, I know when Margot Robbie gets changed and all that, I remember that because it's, they make a big thing about objectifying that. So, but yeah, like that part there, it's like, yep, let's just undo them. It'll be fine. So I think they didn't take much convincing to release them.
Oh yes, a Margot Robbie objectification scene that launched years, still going, of particular Harley Quinn Halloween costume.
Oh yes, and that's the thing. I was to say that because I was very more familiar with her sort of being the jester, and how you see that in one of the flashbacks where she's dancing, and and when she pulls out the jester outfit. So I was surprised they didn't actually go this look for the actual movie, but I'm assuming she wore the main outfit in most of the comics. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read too much Harley stuff, but yeah, it varies quite a bit. Just say with regards to her wear, I guess, depending on how sexy they wanted to be.
Well, that's what I was thinking too. I don't think Margot Robbie would have had quite as much of the appeal in terms of I don't know, certain viewing public if she'd worn that jester outfit the whole way through. So I can probably see what they're doing there. But talking about, I mentioned earlier the standalone film, I really actually started craving that when you started seeing all those stories about Joker and Harley essentially as the king and queen of Gotham City, and it actually got me quite excited, and it was a shame that story wasn't kind of more a part of the movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's just it. Like, I mean, you have a few little shots, and there seems to be a setup, of Joker, setting up a big plan or whatever, but that just goes to the wayside for most of the movie, and aside from I suppose giving us a Harley Quinn backstory in amongst this movie about this squad of no-goods who need to save the world, basically, from Enchantress's jiggly wiggly dance of doom. Oh, that wiggling got to my nerves, but I'm sure...
Oh, the Enchantress in general got on my nerves, but anyway.
Oh, yeah, she was cool to start with, but...
Yeah.
But yeah, the whole Joker stuff, a lot of the Joker stuff just seemed almost irrelevant for a great part of the movie. Aside from fleshing out, the Harley Quinn character just a bit more by showing her journey from Dr. Harley in Quinzel to this crazy, the crazy partner of the Joker, and they're still just like they would have the thing where Harley would look over a ledge and suddenly she would go, oh, you just have a flashback to being on a ledge with the Joker. You're going, okay, that really doesn't do anything, but fine, go for it, whatever. It's entertaining, I guess.
Yeah, it's like they've given us, as you said, exactly what you said. Like they've given Harley a backstory as much as they, pretty much going into a lot of detail. And then instead of it being the Joker's backstory, it's been the backstory of how she fell in love with him, essentially, like really building up that relationship. I was actually surprised how many scenes of, I'm just going to, so I don't have to say Harleen Quinzel every time, I'm just going to say psychiatrist. When she's a psychiatrist, I actually was quite surprised the amount of scenes that were shown with her playing the early part of her journey, essentially. So, they did show quite a lot, but yeah, at the same time, too, I was getting this taste and going, yeah, I really want more of this. Like, I was actually thinking there was going to be a lot more happen in that scene when they're in the club, and you've got Harley Quinn, pole dancing or doing her stuff, and you've got the bouncer or the bodyguard in there with the Joker, and it ends up being an altercation, and all it really is just an excuse for someone to be pretty much pointing out how sexy this girl is, and him getting a bit jealous about it, and yeah, so again, it was all sort of the Joker was there incidentally, or really just to make her story play out.
Yeah, and it's not like anybody else got that level of backstory. I mean, poor old Slipknot didn't even get a dossier scene.
Yeah.
But then the fact that he only lasted, 5 minutes? That he was used as the example of the exploding charges in the neck, which was keeping them all under control. It's like, oh, hang on, they've just got Slipknot turned up. He gets no special intro, and he's dead. Yeah. That's why he gets a special intro.
And again, that whole thing that you said about the bigger the dossier, the bigger the part. And as we find out that the Enchantress part, well, her having the bigger dossier, ends up taking quite a lot of the second half of the movie, and whether that was a good choice or not. But yeah, again, they were building up so many of the other two, well, those main two, and then the Joker sort of ends up slipping away at the end, and near the end, and we sort of don't really see much more. But anyway, we'll get to that.
We do. But I think what Enchantress does do is, like, for all of Amanda Waller's setup and all her planning and all her dossier building and stuff like that, it was just like, why would you have an idol identical to the one that Enchantress was found in the next room when you're in a hotel with her? Why would you do that? Because, yes, we find out that Enchantress has a brother who turns out to be a big CGI bad guy.
Yeah.
Which is a very popular thing in DC movies.
And that's the thing, because I think we first stumble on, because, of course, when they let them all go, and she's with, what's the guy's name? Flag, or whatever his name, Lieutenant Flag.
Rick, I call him Rick.
Yeah, I never know. Yeah, I'm just going to... Yeah, anyway, the Flag guy. So I think when she's sleeping and she whispers under her breath, Enchantress, and then I suppose we're then giving the drama of the fact that she escapes and releases these, what do they call them? Alien entities or something. And that's...
blob face things.
Yeah. Which at first, when I first saw them, I'm like, oh, is that the Killer Croc? Oh no, it just kind of looks like it's some weird thing with their head all mushy. I don't know how to explain it, but yeah. And I was quite surprised that these ended up being sort of I suppose their main conflict in the movie, especially when they've set up these crime-fighting team, and I think, I can't remember what song, I think it was Spirit in the Sky, or one of those songs, with them all walking in as a gang, and I'm like, they're going to kick some butt now, but unfortunately, it becomes quite underwhelming with in terms of what they're actually aiming for, because really, it's all, as we find out, all part of the Enchantress's spell, which, just didn't quite grab me.
Yeah, I mean, let's fight armies of literally faceless soldiers.
Yeah, that even...
And I did notice, like, the actual soldiers that were with Rick, they didn't really do much. It's like, they were firing at them and, like, none of these faceless bad guys were falling when these machine guns were being fired by soldiers, but the second the Suicide Squad turn up with their guns, it's like one shot and their heads explode.
Yeah, exactly.
You go, okay, that's interesting. And one thing about Rick, the whole Enchantress thing again, yeah. But with Rick is how his habit of explaining stuff varied from, like, when Katana, the samurai woman, turns up, because this is Katana. Her blade absorbs the souls of its victims. And a bit later on, she's talking to the sword and talking to her love or whatever, and we get subtitles, which basically says exactly what's going on.
And then I think he even...
it cuts to him and just going, oh yes, she's talking to her husband because he was the first one stabbed by the sword and his soul is trapped with that. We just saw that. Why are you explaining it to us?
And like, I know you...
stop it.
I know. And that thing that I thought, you mentioned how when we first see Katana, that could have even been done, say, in like a bullet points on the screen like they've done with the earlier ones. I don't know, something a bit more clever, like she's deadly with the sword, not having to go to too much detail. But I did really appreciate always the Harley Quinn one-liners with the, oh, she seems really nice. I kind of was happy when Margot Robbie performed those lines, because it almost sort of break up a lot of the, I don't know, dullness of a lot of these fight scenes and a lot of these, I suppose, missions. But so I did appreciate that. Aside from that, I found the script quite not very well, especially, as I said, going back to the Amanda Waller scenes, around the dinner table when she's going through the dossiers and stuff like that. I even found that just about everything she's saying, like there was a line later, I can't remember where it was, but later on where I think it's Rick or someone goes, what about the consequences? I am your consequence. She had a lot of, her lines were a lot of things like that.
Yeah, and then she even disappears for a big chunk of the movie. I think they find out that their mission is to literally rescue her because she's locked in a room somewhere. yeah,
even though she, as you said, disappeared for a while, and I thought I thought something had happened and she was killed off, but no, next thing she's back there again.
Yeah, and then she gets shot down and gets captured by the faceless army things. Actually, I found it interesting. I didn't notice it the first time I saw this movie, which is quite some time ago. But after they fight all the faceless warriors, faceless bad guys, it cuts to some soldiers that were captured. And you see that Enchantress turns them into the faceless blobby creatures by kissing them. And I just thought, wow, how has she had time to build her magical sky beam machine of doom and do her wiggly dance of doom when she's also doing her kissing of doom of literally hundreds of people? I mean, seriously, she has kissed a lot of people in a short space of time to get this amount of an army up.
Well, look how
if that's how she does it.
Well, look how quickly she managed to retrieve that book or whatever that in that government room or whatever, where she ended up coming back and retrieving it. I'm thinking to myself, well, maybe she can get through kissing pretty quickly as well.
Quite possibly. Maybe that's why Rick likes her so much. Sorry. Shouldn't have gone there.
Well, that was an interesting thing, even having that. I think they really needed to have the fact that the Enchantress was in normal form. What was it? Something Jones? I can't remember what it was. Not Dr. Jones, but anyway, what's the character's name?
You gotta make me remember this now, aren't you?
It's not Alex Jones? No? What am I thinking?
I do have a list of characters here. So June Moon.
That's it. How could I not remember that? But anyway, So what I was going to say. So I think if we hadn't had the subplot that he was involved with June, I don't think we would have had so much of the Enchantress stuff. Which I kind of wishing we didn't. I wanted to go back for more of them kicking butt as a team and all that fast editing that we'd seen so much in the earlier. That really set the tone, but unfortunately it sort of started going into real serious territory. And a movie like this shouldn't, because especially the types of characters they're showing there. You've got a guy that's a crocodile, come on.
Yeah, I mean, so much of this movie is walking through a darkened, dusty city, so that they can just have their witty banter back and forth, interspersed by just big shooting scenes. So, I mean, not a lot really happens for a lot of this movie.
Especially for a movie of this length. So I'm not sure if not having seen the other version, I believe the director's cut probably put more of the action in or more... Yeah, I don't know if that might have been what we're seeing or what we saw.
I think the director's cut actually put in more Joker and Harley stuff.
Oh, okay. Hence the reason we saw a bit more. So, but yeah, and then got that whole part too, where pretty much Harley Quinn's supposed to be, I don't know, coaxing them all into. This is earlier on, coaxing them all into taking down the people that have released them, and she pretty much has to work her way through every character, having a conversation with them, and you're like, yeah, and as you said, walking through a place. Yeah,
but again, that's where we get to see a bit more of the ochre Captain Boomerang. Oh yeah, mate, sure thing.
Who has to even be stopping for a beer all the time too.
Yeah. And checking that his fluffy pink unicorn's okay.
Yeah, which is such a weird thing that they had that. I know that was a gimmick of one of his obsessions or fetishes, but I'm just like, where the hell did they come up with that? It must possibly in the cartoon. I don't know.
Yeah. I think basically he's always a bit of a comical character in the comic books, but even the bit where as he's walking through, he talks to Killer Croc, who thumps him and pushes him across the laneway. And then he goes, oh yeah, he's all right, he's my mate. We're just having a laugh. Yeah, cobber.
Just getting every, not every Australian stereotype, but a lot of what Americans see of Australia. And yeah, I love how he's always making references to beer. I think he even stopped for a beer at one stage. I can't remember. I've just got Boomerang here in brackets. Oh yeah, that's him. I'm sorry, I'm just thinking what scene it was. But yeah, where he stops for a beer and he goes to, I think he asked them to go, oh, we should go out for a beer sometime. And like, oh yeah, what do you guys think of Australians, really?
Yeah, but you can tell that Jai Courtney was just loving being over the top Aussie in this movie.
Well, talking about the shootout scenes, even though they did go on for a while, and even that earlier scene with when they're just trying to see how good of a shot Will Smith is, and you're like, after a while, when he's shot so many of does the eye holes in all the silhouettes, and after a while you're like, okay, we get the idea. He can shoot well. That went on for ages. But anyway, going forward a bit, I don't know if you noticed, but in one of the shootout scenes, how some of them were dressed in like panda masks and things. Someone actually had a Batman mask on in the group. I thought that was clever.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I mean, this is a movie that does have some cute and clever things put in there. Like, I think there's one point as well where Harley she starts. Basically, she gets a bit more confrontational with the other characters, and she's there, and she's actually using like psychiatrist skills on these other characters. So showing that even though she's this this supervillain now. She still has those skills, and I thought that was a really nice touch to throw in there. It was like a really clever moment.
Yeah, and I don't know how far forward. I think this is kind of near the end, but when I really liked that scene in the bar, it kind of even though not too much action had happened, as you said, a lot of walking and just some shootouts. I did really like that bar scene. I think we really needed it as a chance to sort of almost get to see the characters and get to know them a little bit more. And with Harley standing behind the bar and sort of giving out drinks and giving advice and stuff. I don't know. I liked that scene, and I think that I would have liked more bits like that actually.
Yeah, I did like that scene, but it did go on a bit too long though.
Well, I thought it was going to get to a stage where, do you know how they when that Rick guy or the flag guy or whatever comes in and they're like, "We don't want you here" or whatever. I thought it was going to be they'd change their tune and end up, making him a drink and they'd all like him again. But yeah, it didn't really go anywhere.
Yeah, but he and Deadshot really bonded though, I found. Like, they seem to be best buddies by the end.
Yeah, and I that's what I was thinking. I kind of wanted them all to sort of come around to him because you knew that he wanted to be more on their side than Amanda Waller's. So I think, but I definitely think, I suppose, if you can say this has good character development, it definitely does sort of, you felt him getting closer to the group. So, but it was just unfortunate that, of course, as I do with most movies, have a look how much longer I've got to go because, the second half was lacking in the momentum. But I was surprised when I'm looking and, it's about half an hour to go. And this is when we get into the Temptress, the Enchantress stuff, which I didn't think would take up such a big part of the movie. And especially because of the CGI of the way that her character has to be done, it was almost so jarring in comparison to everything else we'd seen.
Yeah, I mean, why would she not stop gyrating? I mean, there was no need for her to just constantly gyrate. I think there was one point she's actually literally walking towards the other characters and her hips are still going back and forth from side to side. Stop it! Stop
hips
doing
don't
your
lie.
wiggling stuff. Oh my god, it really bugged me.
Maybe it was supposed to be the whole feel of, what are the snakes that come out of the basket? Yeah.
A cobra type thing.
Yeah, maybe she's supposed to be having that sort of look about her. But yeah, I just found because I'm not saying I want to compare this with Ghostbusters, but all those scenes just reminded me so much of Zool and all the stuff on the top of the building with the lightning. And I must admit, that didn't outstay its welcome as much as this did. So
this is definitely well in the realm of Skybeam stuff. But I did notice another thing, like when she decides to activate her machine, as she called it, which was basically just it looked like a giant floating ring of rubbish. I think even Deadshot called it a trash ring or something like that. and there's a shot of it. And there's a shot back in some military base or something, and there's a monitor, and they're watching as this beam of light takes out a satellite. And they're going, "Oh, they took out the satellite." I'm thinking, what? Where's that camera? Why do you have a camera locked on that satellite? Wouldn't that camera be on that satellite?
Yeah.
And then they're saying, "Oh, it's taken out our satellites," but then you cut to another scene on that monitor just afterwards, showing some location, and thinking, "Hang on, so your satellite's been taken out, but you seem to still be doing fine and everything seems to be working."
We won't be able to solve the problem otherwise.
Yeah, and there was no I mean, you could have just shown the satellite being destroyed. You could have just shown some stuff being blown up, and some people, the things having them watch it on the monitor just made it so tacky.
Oh, so many poor decisions in this movie. And it's almost like they didn't, by the time we got to, I say the second half or Act 3, you sort of got the feeling that they didn't know how to round it up, or not round it up, but really didn't know how to, end it, I suppose. And, I suppose probably in the back of their mind knowing that they're going to have possibly a franchise from this. And, we got the whole bit where they're shooting down Harley and the Joker, and we end up seeing that Harley survives and her sitting bedraggled in the rain, and the group happened to stumble on her quite easily, which I thought was interesting. She fell down in the middle of the city, and then they find her right in that car, right at the exact time they needed her. But anyway, by this stage, I'm kind of thinking, okay, you've essentially killed off the Joker. What's going to happen now? Yeah,
so the Joker rescues Harley by disabling the explosive in her neck. Yet, she still happily rejoins the group and keeps going on to the mission, even though there's no reason for her to do that. She could have just, made a beeline out and went and raised havoc somewhere. So
Yeah.
it's like, okay, you're trying to make Harley a more noble character?
Well, it was almost like... well, I mentioned, how they're almost trying to make Amanda Waller out to be the villain, I suppose. It was almost like... Because Harley was trying to get away from Amanda Waller, who was pretty much just... it's Deadshot, isn't it, that Will Smith plays, wasn't it?
Yep.
Yeah. So, and during that scene where she's trying to get away and she didn't manage to do it. So I really think it was probably trying to even show that, Amanda Waller's the bad guy and Harley has a bit of heart, I think. So those chemicals or that acid that she fell into, there's still a bit of a heart in there.
Quite possibly. I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that just does not make sense. Like the whole thing is that Amanda Waller can control Enchantress because she has her heart, but then when she's literally stabbing the heart, Enchantress just stumbles for a bit, goes, "Help me, CGI glowy brother," and then she's fine.
Yeah, there's never anything more about that.
You don't see this heart again for absolutely ages until they show the faceless blobby creatures taking Amanda Waller's suitcase with it in there, and then Rick just kind of happens upon it in amongst all the chaos when they're fighting Enchantress at the end, and has a whole, if I crush this, I'm gonna kill June Moon. Oh no!
But I love how the Enchantress comes out. You don't have the balls to do it. It was just something I wasn't expecting her to say.
Yeah, she was a very up and down
modern
character.
I don't know, because
I don't know.
I did like the one part, not that this movie ever gets deep, but I did like the part, I can't remember what it was a bit earlier on where the brother first comes out, comes to life, and she's like, we're not the leaders anymore, machines are now we're not worshipped anymore, machines are. And it was really quite making a bit of a statement about the current world, actually. But not that I don't think they were trying to be that deep with it. Especially even, I think Diablo says early in the movie too, "I'm a man, not a weapon." And I thought, that's deep. But yeah, of course, that's probably about as deep as it went.
I think, a lot of good ideas maybe not followed through. But yeah, I mean, okay, so I think we should just wrap this up. We're just going to go back and forth otherwise. But, of course, Rick crushes the heart, defeats Enchantress, but look, June Moon's okay.
Yeah.
Hooray, hooray, hooray.
And he was me thinking by him crushing it, that she wasn't going to be okay, but no, she's fine. Yeah. Sorry.
She's fine. And then Amanda Waller just steps out from behind a pillar. Where did you come from? Even Deadshot goes, "What? Why aren't you? How can you not be dead?" And then it's like, "Oh no, you've all got to go back to prison now. I said you get 10 years off your sentence. That's all. Bye-bye." But
I find it really hard. Like, I know that she ends up, they all have demands, and I love how Harley Quinn's is a espresso machine, which we see her drinking later on. But I love how they all seem to be so, so content with their 10 years off and her sipping a coffee in her jail cell. I'm like, I don't see them being that willing to go back to that.
Yeah, true. I mean, the bit of Deadshot with his daughter,
I can understand,
helping her with her maths homework, and ends up explaining triangles and hypotenuse and stuff like that by comparing it to a bullet traveling, and he gets all upset because she just says, so it's like, when you fire a bullet from here to here.
Yeah.
No, it's much more than that. And it starts going into whiz. It's like, for God's sake.
Because, the whole way through the movie, the kid's just like, but you're a killer, Dad. It's almost like, you can imagine what she'd be like at school. Yeah, Daddy's a murderer. Yeah,
she seems quite, she gets really upset when he's about to shoot Batman, but at the end of it, she's quite happy chatting gunshots with her dad. Okay, good. Daughter's a psycho. Excellent.
I love how Rick or Flag or whatever was, was standing in front of the doorway, and you got the guys coming in with the chains to take him back, and I love he's like, give them a moment, and I'm like, I think she'd be quite aware of what's happening, especially they're standing there with these huge chains. Not very subtle about it, but and as I said, Harley seems quite content. Having her coffees in prison. But I know, probably a bit of a tangent, but I know we're talking about the soundtrack, but I found by the second half of the movie, there wasn't that clever use of music that I was getting earlier on. I can't even remember how we ended, what song it was at the end. Because there was some interesting choices. Very much the first half, it was very much 70s early rock and things like that, but then they'd start putting in some, Without Me by Eminem, and then by the second half, a lot of sort of bit more contemporary music, but just not as clever. I thought the ending could have sort of tail-ended it, sort of, especially to mirror the opening scenes.
Yeah, that would have been nice because like the music got me straight in, but as that faded off and then just came in every now and then,
it wasn't
the carryover that I suppose it could have been. But we find out at the end that Joker's not dead as he comes into the prison and comes into Harley's cell, and he's dressed up in full tactical gear, but he's got Joker written across his chest. Subtle, guys. Very subtle. And then we get the very, very busy closing credits.
Oh my god, did I think I clocked in that we're probably about 10 minutes or more? And because I think, and of course, I knew, and as we know in the Rufus Project, we always watch to the end, but I knew there'd have to be a stinger in a movie like this. So, and that sort of didn't waste too much time. But yeah, as you said, very busy at the start, and I'm glad that when they do the second half of the credits, it's pretty much just what looked like you expected the opening scroll of Star Wars. Just those stars and then the end credits. But we see, because earlier on we've seen a few little cameos from Ben Affleck as a Batman, but we see a little bit more from him in this final scene with Amanda Waller.
Mm-hmm. And as I was like, we get the little quick shots of the various people that are going to be in Justice League, and a little hint that Amanda Waller knows his secret.
Yeah. And I think just before he walks out, he does that typical, look back at her, they have to be stopped or whatever. We have to, can't remember what he said, but and then we're given the finale. So there we go.
Well, there we go indeed. We have got through Suicide Squad from 2016.
And don't feel bad jumping around. My notes are all over the place, and so is this movie to some extent, and to a lot of extent. So I think it probably fits the theme.
Yeah, well, what's the point of recounting the movie,
Exactly, and that would be a very long chat.
It would be indeed. So, we've got to the end of the movie, so we now need to work something out, Kristian. We need to work out if this movie is in any way redeemable. Now, I did suggest it, so after you, my friend. Okay,
now I did mention earlier on, a bit of a spoiler, that I do often think about my decision as I'm watching it, and this is one of those movies where, I am, very much in two minds about, or was in two minds until recently, so It is unusual because, the way I've been talking about it and how quite, I didn't feel that it kept up its momentum. Now, I'm probably just going to have to list some things about it rather than beat around the bush. Now, it just couldn't maintain the excitement of the first 15 minutes. What a great soundtrack. Honestly, Trevor, I'm ready to go and find that soundtrack as soon as I finish this chat, because I think that would be something a lot better than the movie itself. I did love the use of colour, the editing. But hey, again, when you're saying stuff like this, there's obviously not much I suppose character development or plot or not much meat on it. So, but I definitely think if Margot Robbie wasn't in this movie, I wouldn't be I would have rated it probably not even 1 star. So it's a hard one, Trevor. It's really on the cusp. I would have liked to see more crime fighting. Doing what they did for the first 15 minutes. A whole 2-hour movie in that editing style, whilst it might be frantic, I would have been something far more enjoyable. It just couldn't maintain the momentum. I'm in such two minds about it, but yeah, look, I'd love to redeem it because of Margot Robbie, but I have to say in general, and I think it's just under the line as irredeemable. Sorry, Trevor. Actually, not sorry. Sorry, people that made this movie.
It doesn't make any difference to me.
Sorry, that was a long response, so I'm just got a million different ideas on a piece of paper, so...
That's all good. Yeah, I mean, it is a bit of a tough one to bring down because I guess I'll just get to my point. So, I mean, first up, look, Margot Robbie and Jai Courtney, I mean, they were fun and they had the most fun and they were the most fun characters. So, the Aussies represented, which is a good thing to see. But I think, they set up so much so quickly that the rest of the movie does indeed suffer from that, and it's like, what did this movie want to be? Was it going to be a Suicide Squad movie? Did it want to be a Joker and Harley movie? At times it was almost an Enchantress movie. It's one of these things that's trying too hard to be all the things, which is which was a big problem with Batman v Superman, being that it just tried to be too many things at the one time. Look, this movie, quite often just ends up being dumb. But of course, the big thing is you can be dumb but fun, or dumb but not fun. And this one, look, there is some fun to be had. But it's just not enough to make up for it being what is essentially a predictable, dopey mess. So at the end of the day, it doesn't quite reach that line. So yeah, I agree with you. This one's not redeemable.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I had a feeling you'd be thinking the same. But yeah, when you have to overlook the entire thing, yeah, it is below the line.
Absolutely. It could have done with, I think, some of the characters almost getting more representation in other movies before cutting into this one. So that way they would have been established for people that were in the franchise. Take some hints from Marvel, DC.
Yeah.
Do it.
But yeah,
Anyway.
So as we heard, they're going to be having a second chance. So let's see how they go.
A second chance with the next Marvel director. So this could be an interesting outcome. Now, I do have some extra opinions before we wrap it up with our final review. Now, as always, I put the call out on Facebook, so I've got a couple of comments. There's Susie, my wonderful wife and co-host of the What the History podcast, says that she was really looking forward to Suicide Squad, but it wasn't good. Patchy and inconsistent, not a fan. And then Rachel, who was actually one of the guests on one of our early episodes, back when we tried to be more of a magazine-style podcast than what we are now, who said that she hasn't seen it, but she did spend some time working with a makeup artist who worked on the film when they did a short Doctor Who parody film.
Interesting. And as we heard earlier on, the makeup was praised. So, possibly a good connection.
Yeah, indeed. But yeah, so basically, even there, not redeemable. But you know what? This movie does have its fans. And being that we do aim to redeem where we can, we do like to finish on a high note. So I do have another review here. While it's true that the plot is a little lacking in complexity, I still absolutely love this movie. It's a fun movie with a lot of humour and interesting characters. I'm not well versed in the actual comics, but I'm a big fan of the Batman Arkham series of video games, and I love seeing these characters fleshed out and kicking ass. Can't wait to play the Suicide Squad video game whenever it comes out. 5 stars.
Well, there you go. So there are the fans out there, and it sounds like you either, I suppose, love it or hate it,
Yes, well, I think a lot of it comes down to what you think of Jared Leto as a Joker. It was okay at first, but by the end, my God, did he annoy me. I probably should have put that in my roundup, but not a Jared Leto Joker fan.
Yeah, exactly. Almost to the point of taking it away too far, and it got a bit much too quickly. Too much too quickly, that's what I meant to say.
Yes, indeed. So there we go. Suicide Squad. We tried. Not redeemable. So, I wonder if we could redeem our next movie, Kristian.
Oh wow, I know. And do you realise I before our chat, Trevor, I'm like, oh, it's my turn, because I always want to bring something that's out of this world, or a bit something different than what we normally do. But fortunately, I just had to dig through my list, and actually a movie that we have brought up in the past. I actually had to do a quick search on the Rufus Project to make sure we actually hadn't done this, because we've done so many movies, and it's almost like the Josie and the Pussycat syndrome. Have we done this? I'll keep talking about it like we have. So it's been one of those movies we've often said aside, we really need to do that movie sometime. It may be, look, it's from the 80s. It may be very similar to the genre that we've just watched. I'm not too sure much about this movie, so I'm not mixing it up. I'm not going from action to musical or anything like that this time. But I think it's time we looked at this movie, and last year was the 30th anniversary, and I don't really know anything about this movie, but I just know that we're destined to talk about it sometime. So, Trevor, we're going to look at 1987's Masters of the Universe.
Oh, I must admit, this one has been on my list as well. So there we go.
I think we need to do it. I don't know if you've seen it, but we've spoken about it so many times. I just want to know what this bloody movie is like.
Absolutely. Of course, based on the He-Man and Masters of the Universe cartoon series. A quick check, and basically this one apparently is not available on any of the streaming services in Australia. So if you want to check it out before our next podcast, you're on your own, guys.
I know Umbrella Entertainment, who carry a lot of cult and Australian titles. Had it on DVD for a few years, but if you can track one of those down. But yeah, I haven't seen it come out again. I've actually tried to get the rights in the last few years. Look at me, sight unseen, screening it based on reputation. But yeah, unfortunately the rights are up in the air, so you never know. There might be a Blu-ray release or something in the works. So, but yeah, so hopefully someone can track it down, and hopefully we can too.
I'm sure we can find a copy. I think I had it on DVD at some point, so I'm gonna have to dig through my old collection. Yeah. I don't know, mind you, I think I've only seen it like once or twice. So
yeah,
anyway,
well, I'm going in completely
it's been a long
time. But yeah, so I thought it's time we did a movie we have spoken about. So
I will say I was a bit of a Dolph Lundgren fan back in the 80s. There was something about his... he was definitely the master of the dumb, fun action movie.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day. So I do know I have seen this, but yeah, again, it's been a very, very long time.
Yeah, we'll revisit and see if we can redeem it. We need a redeemable.
We'll see how we go. So, well, there you go. From a non-redeemable Suicide Squad to a potentially redeemable Masters of the Universe. Ooh. Lots and lots of movies being covered here, and I'm sure lots and lots of movies that people can go see if they go to a Kristian Fletcher event.
Yes, definitely.
How's that
wow.
For a segue?
Good segue, and that's actually so good that I didn't even have my dates ready, because as I say every time, Trevor, there's always so many events coming up, but as we round out the rest of the year, they are rounding up a bit, but we've still got some great cult movie nights coming up. No more retro parties, unfortunately, but you'll be able to get to Metro Arts for such movies as Office Space, which I'm hoping you'll be able to see Trevor there as well. And we've got movies such as Tank Girl, Showgirls, Desperately Seeking Susan, Princess Bride, Dirty Dancing. Are you getting a chick flip vibe here with a lot of those movies, aside from Office Space? So you could probably see a lot of my audience there. So, and we have our last comedy commentary cinema for the year coming up in November. But you're best to check out KristianFletcher.com or Kristian Fletcher Events on Facebook for more details. And the new program will be out very soon.
Fantastic. Now, from a podcast side of things, I mentioned it quickly earlier. I can heartily suggest everyone check out the What the History podcast, which I do with my wife Susie. We recently did our Halloween episode, so if you're after some interesting trivia based around Halloween, we dug up a couple of bizarre stories from history that I suppose go a bit more on the spooky side and are a lot of fun. But basically with that, every 2 weeks we do release a podcast with a couple of bizarre bits of history, which only goes normally for about 20 minutes. So it's a nice, easy, fun, educational listen. And the other big news is that the Rufus Project and What the History, not only can you find us at our respective homepages, links are in the description below, but we're also on Stitcher and Spotify. So yes, you can basically find us pretty much everywhere now.
So plenty of opportunities there to listen to some of our previous ones. And gosh, we've done so many movies on the Rufus Project. You can revisit however many there are, and I think I've lost count.
Yes. So we'll better let you know where to find these things. So What the History is at wthpod.rufusproject.com or Spotify or Stitcher or your favourite podcast app. The Rufus Project, you can find us at rufusproject.com. We're on Twitter and Facebook under The Rufus Project. You can send us an email to podcast@rufusproject.com. Of course, find us on Stitcher and Spotify under The Rufus Project as well. We make it super duper easy for you to hear us and to contact us. And basically, only the last 10 podcasts are live at any one time. I am working in that fixed, but you can always head to our homepage to check out all our previous podcasts, all the movies that we've already covered. And you can also head to the Rufus Project YouTube channel to also listen to the podcast and get some extra videos largely around retro gaming, because that's the thing I love doing.
Oh, yeah, definitely recommend checking those out. So, yeah, we've definitely got a good blend of pop culture, history, and bad movies, essentially. So, we've got you covered in most respects.
Who wouldn't want that blend of things?
Exactly.
Okay, well, on that note, I think it's time to probably wrap things up. Again, let us know if you've got any comments on Suicide Squad. Were we too generous? Were we too harsh? Give us your comments on Masters of the Universe. We would love to hear from you about those. And we'll be back in a couple of weeks' time with Masters of the Universe. So see you then.
Is it too good to be bad? So bad it's good. What's this movie? Do you think we should? It's got bad dialogue, dodgy creatures, but we want to know what the redeeming features.
Boy? Oh boy.
Kristian and Trevor on the case, watching movies from all over the place. I'm BP, says it's bad, but we want to know is there fun to be had?
Boy? Oh boy.
Redeeming features.